So I wasn't planning on recording a video for this, but as you can tell, things got a little bit out of hand with all the parts I had to order for this project. I thought this was going to be a simple project to do, where I was taking a factory Audi RNS-E, which is just one of the radios that came in B7s. But what I was going to do is take the factory RNS-E and add touchscreen to it, because the factory ones, they don't have touchscreen, and also just a higher resolution screen in here, because the factory one I think is 240p, which is really bad, especially for nowadays. So the idea was to just add in that and then CarPlay and a few other modern amenities. So I thought it was going to be a fairly simple process, because I've seen YouTube videos online of some people that have done it. So I'm like, it's probably easy to do. Well, I was pretty much wrong on that, and you can tell just by all the parts here that I ordered. I'll give you guys a quick overview of what I've done so far. This was working at one point, and now, since then, I started tearing everything apart, and now it does not work. But I could probably get it working again soon, just to demo it outside of the car. I haven't even gotten to the point of doing it in the car. You can see this is the harness that I started working on to power everything from the car. This is what the factory plug would be at, and then ideally all this stuff would plug into the back of the radio. See, all these wires, there were actually even more wires. I bought a harness that had all these wires connected. I pulled out all the ones that aren't used for anything, and now I'm left with still a lot to wire up. There's a lot of stuff in here, but I got the power wired up and then also ground. That's all I've got right now. And some connectors. So I'm going to show you guys just what I've done so far with this, and how eventually I'll get it running, and hopefully planning on, if it all works out, to sell a few as well, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that would want something like this where it looks factory, but you have all like modern touchscreen amenities. CarPlay, I think CarPlay is a really big one. And then for me, I really wanted a way to record custom gauges. If I add in things like fuel pressure, boost, other things that I would need for my B6, I really just wanted a way to log that and show it on a screen here too. But that's way down the road, and I'm not even thinking about that at this point, but that was one of the main reasons why I started this. So let me give you a quick intro into everything I got going on over here. All right, so what I've got here is, I just moved this over to a new workbench because that other one is covered in parts, but the RNS-E here I've got, and what I did to this so far is, this screen is not factory. So I took out the whole screen. Actually, I can show you all the parts. These are all the parts that I took out of this thing. And what I have in it now is just one thing right now, which is the display plug for it. And then I also have this Raspberry Pi that I'm planning on mounting there. I gotta get this display cable still worked out before I decide to put this in and mount it properly. But you can see, got display here, and HDMI for it that would plug into this. And how this all works is, this is a touch screen too. This is the touch controller wire backlighting for right here. I had to extend those wires just to make it work over there. I'm not very happy on my solders for that, but so what I have here is the wiring for all this. I still need to eventually fit all this in here. You can see there's quite a lot of wires. I think it would be, since I'm getting rid of all this junk here, that there would be more space for me to fit everything, but honestly it's really difficult to fit everything in here, and I'm finding that out as I get further in this project, because you can see all these wires. I got to figure out a way to make it clean, because on the factory one, this is the factory here, you can see it's all a circuit board, so it makes it easy for them, and they just stack all these circuit boards everywhere. I forget how it all fits, but they just have them stacked everywhere, so it's just a bunch of circuit boards, and there's not really as many wires as this. So it's a little bit more difficult for me now to have the circuit board here with all the wires, and then the CarPlay. This is the Raspberry Pi 5. You can see the bottom part is actually a Raspberry Pi 5. I bought that. This is what the OS for this whole thing will run on. Everything in there will run on this. And then I have a CarPlay hat, which is just something that goes on top of this Raspberry Pi. You can see here, it goes on top, and what this does is you can actually see, it's really nice that someone made this, but you can see this main car loom I actually have wired up. This would plug into here, and that would give us the power switch, power signal, all the things like that that make this work properly and easily, because it actually, what I'm getting from the car is 12 volts, but this needs to be 5 volts because that's what the Raspberry Pis run on. So this has an 12 volt to 5 volt converter built into it, all the safe shutdown logic built in, so it makes it really easy for me to work with. But there are some limits to this where I still need to work out things like the audio output is 3.5 millimeter jack right over there. I got to work out how to get that working with the 4-channel type system. I'll probably just do the front and rears together, but I've got to work out everything else. This is all for the screen. So that's what I've got right now. This will probably go somewhere right there. And then you can see I'm already running out of space. And there's a few more things that I still need to do. Like, I really want to get the buttons on the front of this RNS-E working. I want to be able to use this if you need, and then these buttons here. So when I stripped this all down, I left in the circuit board for this. If you see right there, that plug is the main plug for everything with this display. So I left that plug in here, but I still need to figure out what every single pin means. It's a 9-pin connector. I have no idea what each pin is, so I got to figure out which one's positive, negative, and then what all the other ones mean, and figure out how to get it all working, which I have bought. I have bought an Arduino for this, which I have never used an Arduino before. But what it will handle, if I can get it out, that's the Arduino. This one's a Arduino Nano Every, and it's pretty small, but I've got to solder on some pins for it. And what this will do is it'll allow me to handle the logic for these buttons in here and translate it to a way that the Raspberry Pi can handle it. So that's what the whole purpose of this is. You can see I'm thinking this, I'll just power it with that. I haven't really looked into it much yet. I just bought it and haven't really focused on it yet because I'm still trying to figure out how to even get this connector to work with this, because I need to convert it some way and make it clean for me to do that. I think that's really all that I have to show today. I think the next step is to finish up this harness so I can at least try and work out try and get everything figured out for plugging it into the car and test fitting everything there. So what I've got left to do is still hook up. One of these is a reverse signal. I've got to hook that into this so that if you go into reverse and you want to kick on the reverse camera in the future, if it turns out that I do add that feature, that'll turn on. And then also I've got the power for the display here. So that's for the Pi, this is for the display. And I've also got to figure out the aux for the speakers to output all that. There's 5 connectors in here somewhere for front left, front right, rear left, rear right, and then a ground. I'll need to wire them in some way. I just got this today, which is a converter for 3.5 millimeter aux. So one of them will be left, right, and then ground. And I'll just tie in the front and rears together. So I'll work on adding that in, and then there's probably a few other things. I'm not really sure about CAN, what I'm going to do with that. I'll probably just leave that alone because that's another entire project to figure out how to handle the CAN bus data, like to get steering wheel controls, things like that figured out. So I'm just going to ignore that for right now. I'm still waiting on a display cable to bring in the Pi here and get that working. Once that's good, then I can just mock everything up inside of the RNS-E case and figure out if everything fits in properly for the box. Still got to figure out how to mount a few things so that, like, one of these is an example. Anything big like this, I got to make sure that it's mounted in the box, either screwed in somewhere or glued, so that when you're driving in the car, you don't hear it bouncing all around and rattling. That would be really bad if everything was rattling inside. So I just got to work everything out in terms of that. I'll show you a demo on the bench, just how everything works with the CarPlay and with the OS that I chose for it. The next steps for this really are to finish up all the wiring and get it in my car to see if it'll actually work in there or not. And if it doesn't, then I got a pretty expensive paperweight sitting here, and I guess I'm going to be spending a lot of time troubleshooting it to get it all working. I really don't know what I'm getting myself into yet, and hopefully I'll figure out as I go along the way.